Okay, we're going to make a start, everybody. I am delighted. Good morning, everybody. We're just going to make a start. I'm delighted to welcome Andrew Toogood to share with us this morning. Andrew is an international keynote speaker, facilitator, and consultant with over 20 years leadership experience. He is the only whole brain practitioner in Northern Ireland and has over a decade of experience working in senior roles in corporate banking. So can you join me in giving Andrew a warm welcome as he comes to share with us?
Listen, it's great to see you. I'm always slightly nervous when you go like over 20 years, Stephanie. I started working when I was 10, or was it 9, up in East Belfast. It was rough in those days, so I had to get you straight out to work. But it's great to be with you, and you've all got pen and paper ready. Normally I would love to go, who are you, what do you do, who are you, what do you do? But are we okay if we don't do that?
Yes.
Because we just need to crack on. So there's 3 questions, so let me just tell you a wee bit about myself. This is me. I look, do you know, I felt so guilty sitting listening near us because I am rubbish at LinkedIn. Anyway, I'm sitting there going, oh crap, I literally don't know what I'm doing. And I don't have the time to do it either, and now I'm feeling doubly guilty. So but there I am, look. That's such a bluff. Follow me and you'll probably hear something from me this time next year. How's that? And because we're just flat out actually doing business. So we do work with tons of people, as you'll see. Here's some of our clients from the last couple of years. We work with probably 80% of them at any one time. And we're a small business. I was a director in corporate finance, and as a banker, don't judge me, all right? I was a nice banker, and I did that, led large teams all over the place. Then quite by accident started a leadership business. And now we do tons of leadership work around the place. But I'm going to help you today, because if you're sitting here thinking, right, in all of our businesses and everything that we do, the bottom line is if we don't connect with the people out there and build really good, solid relationships with them, be able to transact ongoing, and it's Neera's touched on it a little bit around, it's not just about us pushing stuff out, but how do we really get through to people? Now here's the great news for you, all right? And one of the things that I have found, okay, is that if you understand people, right, you're able to connect with them, get through to them, and do better business with them. And so what I'm going to help you with today is something super practical. And it's not going to be 7 lists of, here's your 7 or 10 steps to this, that, or the other. I've heard a million of those, and quite frankly, I forget most of them. But in the moment when I'm sitting looking at somebody, what's your name?
Shane.
Shane. So when I'm working with Shane, or I'm there's some things that I know about Shane in a couple of minutes. I'm not manipulating him. I'm not bullying him. I'm not trying to be like, here Shane, like sleight of hand stuff. But a genuine understanding of how people operate always gets us more business. And we're going to look at that today. Right? So you're going to walk out of here and you're going to go, the next time I'm thinking about my pitch, my presentation, my meeting, whatever it happens to be, there's just some really cool science that helps you. I write this quote down. A guy called Goffey and Jones, two guys, Goffey and Jones from Harvard, who wrote a book called Why Should Anyone Be Led By You? And they said this great quote: just be yourself more, but with skill. So I thought of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, quite frankly, to go for a walk or run or whatever. I was in chamomile tea. You must be, that's not me, right? I love my cup of coffee at 9:30 at night, and you know what, I sleep like a baby by 10:15. Alright? That's the truth of it. So it's about being yourself more, about understanding yourself really well. And everyone talks about emotional intelligence, don't they? Do you want me to just boil that down for you? Goldman, Salovey, Mayer, these great thinkers of the last 40 years. Be really self-smart, be really people-smart. Be really self-smart, be really people-smart. So what I'm going to say to you today is your biggest barrier, right, to getting through to people and having a successful business is probably not about the fact that you're drinking coffee and not getting up at 5 o'clock. It's about, do you really know yourself and do you know the people that you're working with? I'm going to give you a quick way to hack into the way people think. If you leverage that, you can remain yourself with great skill. You don't have to try to pretend. I don't know about you, sometimes you ever feel exhausted sometimes when you get home from the world of work? Anyone? No, it's like the Waltons and Owen, isn't it? Oh no, we love it. We all wander around and it's fantastic. You know what I mean? Oh no, it's fantastic. Okay, no, but you put a face on all the time and pretend. God, it's exhausting. Let's be honest. You don't need to. You don't need to. So you ready to learn a little bit?
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good. So the question we'll probably all ask ourselves is, how are we going to succeed like in a world where increasingly, what's interesting is there's less chance for a relationship in business today. It's more transactional. We've had huge separation because of hybrid, remote working, all sorts of stuff. People, there's tons of challenges, right? But there's one thing I'll cut right out through all of that for you this morning. But let's put your brains to the test. What I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to say the colour of the words, right, that come up. Don't say the words, say the colour of the words. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. We're going to do it all together. You're going to do it after 3, and we're going to see how rubbish you really are at this. Ready? So it's all going to be a good laugh, so don't be worrying about making fun. After 3, 1, 2, 3, go.
Blue, green, red, yellow, green, blue.
Quicker than that, flip me. Alright. Stephanie, you said we were getting the smart ones up here, right? I want my money back. So here's the thing, right? Try and go quick. We'll do it again. I'll make it slightly easier for you. Say the colour, not the words, as quick as you can in unison. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, sounds a wee bit better, but still fairly miserable. That's all I heard. Andrew Dobbin, great name. Can you say that sentence for me?
Good times are here.
Are you sure, Andrew?
Yep.
Oh dear. The thing is, we all have mental defaults. As you sit here this morning, everyone has a mental default. It's the way that you see the world. It's the way that you process information. It's the way that you make decisions. It's the way that you communicate. And it seems very normal to you. You can look at something and you'll just go, well, that's the way I see it. That must be what it is. And actually, I'm going to challenge your mental defaults today and give you something really solid to work with. Now, we have to set this in context of the world that we work in. And, if we could move on. This is gone again. We've got technical issues here. Yeah, and the next one, just keep going. So you might have heard this before about how the world is changing, and this is how sales needs to change in a world that's changing. The first one is V for volatility. Okay, so just click there for me. So the world is volatile. Has anyone heard this before? This is how we describe the world right now. Think about the protocol, it's a great one. Or think about any big issue that's going on in the world today. The world is much more volatile than what it's ever been. The next one is U for uncertain. That means, do we go this way, do we go that way? What's going to happen 12 months from now? Nobody really knows. Futurists don't believe, and the people who are the people who are paid the big bucks to spot the trends, they just don't know either. The next one is complex. I don't know about you, but my business is more complex today than it was 5 years ago. I've got more sources of ingress, more things to hold, more things to juggle. And complexity is something that we need to get used to. Online, remote, our customers stroke clients for the most part are much more removed from us than what they've ever been. If we want to grow a business, we need to connect with more people. How do you do that in the world that we live in? The last is A for ambiguity. And ambiguity just means, what are you going to do? What's your strategy? You could do this and you could do that. I work with tons of businesses on their strategic narrative, going, well, is it this, is it this? What are you going to make the call for? Because in a world that's changing really quickly, we don't know how it's going to go. How do you sell in the middle of a world that looks like that? Well, here's the thing. There is in the middle of a complex world, there is one skill that's going to stand out above them all. And that skill is called agility. Your ability to shift and pivot depending on who's in front of you. And I want to show you how to do that. But let me first show you how your brain works. What I want you to do by a show of hands, let's come back live, is which one are you going to choose? So who's going to choose? You've got 2 choices, EasyJet or British Airways. So you can only choose one, don't go, I like Aer Lingus, it's tough, it's not on the board. So who's choosing EasyJet? Ooh, British Airways. I'm definitely going BA, right? Little or M&S? This is going to weed them out. Little, M&S. I tell you, see, I love Little. So my wife does the shopping. It's not M&S because there'd be an argument, right? She loves Sainsbury's, but I love Little. Do you know the best fun you can have? Here's something for nothing. Spot your middle class neighbour if you have one in Little. They all pretend they don't shop there. See, if I eyeball one of my friends in Little, I make sure I get them. I hunt them down. I'm sorry, Tesco's burnt down, terrible. Stop spoofing. I know you shop here.
There's only 2 choices. There's no Little in one.
Is there not?
Temperance.
But they've got like new bigger ones on there.
Even more choice, Shane. Listen, it gets better, doesn't it? Alright, what about this one? Oh, all the tech nerds. Who's going Apple? Of course you are, because you're normal people. Samsung. Oh well, there's a special course to you. And what about this one, the Beamer drivers? Come on. You have to choose one. Renault drivers? TC Autos, anyone? One of my old clients out here in the town. Yeah, well there you go. I worked with TC's, was one of their primary bankers for years. So there you go. Now, why did I ask you to do that? Think about what happens in your clients and your customers today. The first thing that we understand about the science of how people choose and make decisions is this. There's something that happens. Now you've really got to think about this. If you want to sell better, get to the root of it, and it's their thinking that matters, not their behaviours. There's something will happen. You walk into a room, let's just talk about it on a personal level. You walk into the room, the first response that somebody has to you is not what is your product or what does it do. The first response is emotional. That's why when I showed you two brands, the reason why your brain went, I want that one, is because of how it made you feel. So some people like Lidl because they feel like they're getting value, it makes them feel a certain way. Some people go Marxies because it's Marxist, darling, and it makes them feel a certain way. Quite frankly, I think they're crazy, right? But knock yourself out. Is there a Marxist here in the town?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. See, you have everything right here, west of the band, right? So what happens next? I don't know, the cognitive appraisal. So what happens in people, make no bones about it, the first thing that people want to know, or the first thing that's going to make me want to buy from you or not, is not how good is your product, or how does it stand out from the competition, is what are you like? It's called a limbic response. Simon Sinek in his book called Start With Why talked about it. The decision-making part of someone, we would love to think it's logical, although logic plays a part, it's emotional. The part of the brain that makes the decision to go, I'm going to choose you, whether it's a product, a service, or a person, it's the same part, it's called the limbic system. And it lights up, but it has no capacity for language. That's why it has no capacity for language, but it just feels it. So if I was to show you something that was really important to you, you go, ooh, that's lovely, I want that. And then your head goes, you can't afford it, don't they? Right? But we all understand what comes first. So what you've got to consider first of all, if you need to get people to make decisions, and there I was just getting onto it there this morning, is to go, when it comes to the actual process, so you don't have to manipulate or bully, the question is this. Number one, do I understand how to talk about why something matters versus what it is? Now what it is, I'm going to show you how to nail that really brilliantly, but why comes first. I see loads of people in business, and even when I was banking, but even in my own business, I never sit down with a client and go, we do this, and this. Never. Nearest got it right. I ask lots of questions, then what I do, I say, what's important, what's important to you? And then I go, this is why we do what we do. So if I was to ask you what is your why, don't say make money, don't say turn a profit, don't say get more business. That's the consequence of something. It doesn't matter whether you're from Omagh, Belfast, Melbourne, Australia, or anywhere in between. The psychology, the biology and the psychology of how people make decisions is rooted in why. And when you get there, then they'll make a choice. And this is what happens every single time you interact with someone. I just want you to think about it. Because better thinking for better sales starts with understanding how people operate. If you look at car advertising today, how many car adverts have, this is what the car's made of, this is the top speed, this is what this... Do you see any of that? What do you see? Big flashy pictures of boom, and people doing fun stuff and bungee jumping, and what are they doing? They're going, this is why this car will facilitate that. It makes you go, I want. So we start with why. That's not the point of what I'm going to say to you right today, because we're going to get to better thinking. And Stephanie, you're just going to jump in there again. All right. So what do we do? Let's go to the next. Let's start to decode thinking. Here's the problems that we have and we need to solve. Customers want it all today, don't they? Is anyone finding their customers are more demanding? Yeah. We want it quicker. We want it cheaper. One of the things do you find, the change in dynamic of your customer relationships? What's happening? Want it fast? Want it good value?
We still want top quality.
There's more choice. They want better quality. Anything else? What's it?
Unfair,
Yeah, we get asked about our green policy, which it used to be. I was like,
I would also say that people actually are more patient now.
okay, tell me why.
Probably because of COVID and everything that has happened, and just people realise the stuff isn't just as readily available as it used to be.
Okay.
Yes, they still would like it tomorrow, but I think there's a better understanding of them not being able to get it tomorrow, and that there is, that wait will have to happen because of different things that are going on in the world.
So, yeah, we've all realised order a garden shed, it's going to be forever, right? This is what happened to us. The problem is if I can get that shed quicker somewhere else, I'm not going to give you the time to get it in for me. In fact, I paid £400 more for a shed because I could get it 6 months or 6 weeks earlier. So I get your point, but it puts pressure on us, doesn't it?
They want personal. So they want to feel like actually you've heard them. They want you to feel like you have solutions to whatever their problems and their needs are.
Okay.
Rather than to be treated just like everybody else.
Okay. And if they don't get all of this stuff, then they tend to move on. That next slide. So what we tend to do with selling is we tend to look at people's behaviours then, right? But what we should be doing is looking at how they think. Let me say that again. Everything around sales is customer behaviour. But customer behaviour, from a science point of view, starts with how they think. If you can capture how they think, you'll get their behaviour. Do you understand that? Think about web, what we do. We measure customer journey. How do they click here? How do they click there? Right? It's very interesting, but it doesn't tell you why they made those decisions. So what we see sometimes with, it's not my business, but I can understand it a bit, is your landing page should look like this, and it's kind of formulaic. And you kind of go, well, that's not teaching you anything really about your customers of true value. Because here's the truth, next slide, right? Every buying decision is not rooted in a behaviour, it's rooted in a thought. I'm going to make this really simple for you. If you have to decode how your customers think and understand how they think, I'm going to show you it's really simple, and then start to use it. You can actually start to use this today. Okay, because here's the thing about human beings, you might understand this. Behaviour, buying behaviour, whatever, is as a result of how they feel about you, that limbic response, which started off as a thought. Every single time you interact with another human being, they think something, it generates the feeling positively towards you, and then they behave. If you want to have better performance, better results, better sales, stop trying to work on the behaviour element, get to the root and get to how they think. Now, are you tracking with me so far? It's dead practical. It's really, really practical. There are 3 questions, you might want to write them down, that we probably all should be asking ourselves in today's world. Number 1 is, what information does the customer need to make this decision? What information do they need? Secondly, how do I present the information to satisfy the customer's needs? So it's one thing knowing the information, how to present it is something entirely different. There's science to help you with it. And the last question is, what strategy do I need to influence to shift their perception? Next slide. So in all these questions, we're going to get to the root of it right now. And keep going there for me, because next click. And keep going. And this is the thing that you need to do, right? We need to grow this key skill called agility. Agility simply means your ability to shift depending on who's in front of you. Because what a customer needs, how you get it to them, and what the strategy is to deliver it is different for everybody. But there's one thing that you can hard bake into it, it's called whole brain thinking. Okay, and the question you need to ask yourself is, am I agile? Am I able to shift, or have I just got into the pattern of doing it all the same way? Does that make sense? I see businesses just chucking stuff at the wall and hoping that it kind of sticks. What's our strategy? Well, our strategy is we just, even on LinkedIn or socials or whatever, it's like, and you're going, are you really actually having a really good think about the way that information needs to come through? So let's have a look at it. Realize we're going quick because we have to make us some time, don't we? This guy Tim Cook, he said this. So diversity of thinking is the new frontier. This is where we get right into the science of what we do as a business all day long with senior leadership teams, executive teams, and everything else in their strategy. We start to look at how people think, how it drives their behaviours, and how then we can leverage better thinking for better results. And it's so flipping powerful. Because these guys at the very top end to it, this is part of who they are. What they do is they look at thinking and they go, this is how a consumer thinks, and and this is how we then set up for them. It's becoming really, really like big news right now. Okay, so if you look at all the thought leaders and all the rest of it, diversity of thinking, or cognitive diversity, is the hottest topic in town right now. That's, thank God, that's what we do. Right, so let's explain it to you. I'm going to put it right into sales. So 2 slides in, that's good. So there's a way of going. See all your customers right there. How do you actually get your business to land with them better, more effectively, and quicker? There's a technique called whole brain thinking, which is a branch of neuroscience, and it is so simple to apply. It makes you really self-smart, it makes you really people-smart. Most of us in the room communicate, make decisions, innovate, whatever it happens to be, all through the way that we see the world, the way it makes sense to us. And then we kind of wonder why other people don't get on board. So whole brain thinking is where we learn how we think, what are our preferences for thinking, how do we become agile and shift for our customers, and then make that happen so that we get more sales. That's all this methodology is, okay? If you want to know, there's about 95% of the Fortune 500 companies use whole brain thinking, so the biggies use it. And so if you want to know why some of these businesses are so successful, it's because at their heart what they've understood is leverage how their customers make decisions, and then simply adjust and become agile around that. And so what I'm just about to show you, around 95% of Fortune 500 companies use it, and we've worked with a ton of these people ourselves. So here's what happens. Here's all the, actually I'm going to push right through on this for time. Now we'll go. Isn't it brilliant when technology stops working? Okay. I will use this one here. Okay, so we'll use this one. So whenever you start to use this method, and you can do it tomorrow morning, in fact you can go and look at your pitches tomorrow, or your marketing material, and put it through this lens and go, how effective is it? So these are the results that you'll get. Okay, so people, those 95% of Fortune 500s, okay, click ahead there, we're way more effective at communicating. What's the definition of communication? Does anyone know? Businesses get it. It means a buzzword, it means nothing.
Being understood.
Being understood, okay, part of it. It means to get through, to get in common. Information, Sidney Harris, didn't he say that information and communication are used interchangeably, but they signify different things. Information just means giving out, communication means getting through. If you want to do more sales, you've got to get through to people, not just give them information. Information is not the same as communication, they're two different words. But you get way more effective. Now, let's go. We get much quicker decision making. How do we position for our customers, etc., and just fire them all up there. Talent reduction, attrition drops, improvement in team productivity. That's a number should be on the board. That was for Pfizer and R&D in the last 2 years in Europe, and 70% faster speed to job mastery. So, do you want to know what it is? Do you want to know how your brain works and how you can think about this for your colleagues and your customers and your clients? Easiest way to sell in the world. Do you know when I'm a banker, I was a director in corporate finance for a large bank, and for the first 12 months of my life, I sold cars. And the reason why I had to do that was because I was going to be working as a banker in the car industry, primarily, and they wouldn't let you work in that unless you did like a ground up. And so I remember having these great ideas about, I'm going to, you're qualified and all this, and they said, right, your first 12 months you're going to be working with the Charles Hurst Group, which you're from Northern Ireland, and you're going to be on the ground selling Renaults. I nearly died. My mother had it, she went all Jewish, even though she's not Jewish. My God, my son, all this kind of stuff, right? And there I was, chucked out into the big bad world of work. I remember looking through the windows in Boucher Road going, my life's over. I had to quickly learn how to sell cars. Actually, I ended up being really good at it. I sold over 300 cars in the first year. So it took to like a duck to water, and then I didn't want to give it up. But the bank said, no, you can't stay in there. You've got, unless you want to work for them, you need to come back. And now we start the rest of your training. Because now you understand the business. You understand what it's like to stand on a cold Thursday night in October with somebody who's shopped you 25 times and they're arguing over 50 quid. Anyone? Sign up TCs and etc. so on. So what happens is this, what we started to understand was that people process information, will make a decision based on 4 things. This is how people's brains work. It's not my opinion, it's not clever sales technique, it's science. The science is clear on this. This is a Nobel Prize winning science, by the way, based on a piece of work. But if you understand the 4 ways that the brain processes information and makes decisions, and you then become agile and able to pivot to that, then you'll sell more. Because right now, even as you're listening to me, you're processing it through your primary preference of how you process information. Now let me show you, your brain works in 4 ways. The first one is what we call quadrant A thinking. Right? These are people who are just all about the facts. They're critical, rational, factual. What is it? What's it made of? What does it do? What does it cost? What are the technical aspects of this? Okay. That is what lights them up. Now here's the thing, you're all of these, but you have preferences for some over others. And when you prefer one thing, you create a gap somewhere else. That gap is where you lose out. So what we want you to think about, or what I want you to think about, is in whole brain thinking, is to go, when I look at what we do, the product or the service that we offer, how, number one, have we set it up? Is it probably in the way that it makes the most sense to you? But bear in mind that the most common kind of thinking is only about 18% of the population. So that means 80%, 4 out of 5 people in any room that you will sit in will see things slightly different than you. So that means you have to learn to be agile. But there are people there who just want the facts. What is it? How does it work? What's the technical bit? That's called quadrant A thinking. Quadrant B thinking is this. They want to know how, what's the plan, if you like, or how does it work? What's the process? What's the procedure? How do I buy from you? What happens when I buy? When I hit this button, what happens next? How does this, what's there's testimonials and stuff like that are built into this kind of thinking. But they're not asking so much, what is it, but how does it work? And therefore, by extension, what would it mean to me? Certainly you'll see this if you're selling services. Anyone who's selling professional services or anything like that, which is not like a widget, right? You really got to think about this. Because there's lots of reasons why. Move on. And then C quadrant is what we call the interpersonal or relational thinking. There are people who will look at stuff and they'll just think, what does it mean for me? What's the impact on me? What's the impact? What difference is this going to make? How do I feel about what you're putting in front of me? Have you actually taken time to consider my feelings in this? Like Niraj was saying, have you asked really good questions to find out more about me? Etc., etc. And then the last thing is what we call quadrant D thinking. Quadrant D thinking is very future thinking. So this is where people who go, I'll buy this because in the future it paints a picture of what this product will do for me. So they don't really care about the technical bit of it. So if you said to me, one of my wee dreams, and my wife keeps saying those, I would like a boat. We are talking like about 100 million quid of it. You see though, but I'm not even talking about, I'm just talking about a wee boat with a wee engine that I can drive off into Loch Earn and forget about the world. And come back. She keeps saying no, I'm not allowed, because I can't swim and all sorts of silly reasons, right? But I don't particularly care what the boat is. I had a friend talking to me about an engine and outboard. And I said, I don't care, can I switch the fire on and go out there and fish for an hour? Why? Here's my check, right? What was interesting whenever, do you get me? So there's people who just go, what's this going to do for me? What's the future look like? Now here's the thing, you might not be aware of this, but your brain operates in all of those 4 quadrants all of the time. The thing is, you choose the one that makes the most sense to you. And then therefore what we do in any kind of situation where we're working with clients or anybody else is we tend to present the information. Remember the 3 questions that I asked you? What is the information? Doesn't mean what it does, it means all of that. Secondly, then how do I need to get them the information? How do I present it? Well, understand this. You're only ever going to present your product, your service, in the way that makes most sense to you. So I have people who come to me and go, like, a lot of executive coaches, we have a big executive coaching bit of our business. Coaches approach us all the time and go, here's my qualifications, can I have some work? I go, I've got a list of people who might qualify you and they're not getting any work. The really smart ones who come along and go, this is what I can do for you, right? All of a sudden, they're starting to get my attention. Because my preference, my order of preference is this, I go D, the big yellow bit, I go C next, I go B, and then I go A, and then I go B. So I go that way in a sale. If you start off A, B, you've lost me. You get that? That's just the way my brain works. Now you're thinking, do I have to sit and work this out for everyone? No, you just have to stop doing it the way that you prefer and give it to people in the round. Make sure you have covered all your bases and you'll have way more success. Why? Because you're just leveraging how people make decisions. Are you following me okay? This is making sense.
Will it also be in the questioning process you start to find out what the person's like?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
And then you can lead with that.
yeah, well, there's lots of ways. I'm going to get you to think about it in a moment. And what's really interesting, if you go, there's layers to this, right? I'm starting to melt the brain, but you'll see up here, these are called clusters. One of the things you'll find is that just because we have these big primary preferences, there's massive preferences underneath. So what you'll find is very technical people are crap normally with money. You want the proof of that? Anyone in the room, I'll give you a tenner if you can name me a major IT project that has been delivered on time and under budget in the last 5 years. Anyone? Even a wee IT program? What are they normally? Over budget and over time? Why is that? Because we put technical people in charge of the projects because we think they understand it the best. The data tells you, what the science tells you is people who are very technical normally are not very good with money and budgeting because it's a different kind of thinking. So why do we put them in charge? Who knows? However, so there's lots of stuff underneath this that we don't really need to get into today, but let's figure out then, if every one of your customers, think about your client list right now. If I was to pick up any bit of your marketing material or listen to you do a pitch, if I got any one of you up right now to sell me what you do, what you're going to see is that person's preference come shining through. You're going to see it from where they start, where they go to, where they lead. And quite frankly, some of you won't even cover all the bases that you need to cover to get things to land. Because remember, that person who's sitting on the other side of you, they are going to make a decision, they're going to think about it. That's what we're talking about here. That'll generate the positive feeling, which will result in the sale. But unless you get them to think about it in the way that makes the most sense to them, you're never going to get them. All you're going to get is objection after objection after objection, until you just talk about the thing that makes the most sense to them. Now, it's called whole brain walk around, and you can do it in 5 minutes. So let's ask you, how are we doing so far? Is this interesting, or are you going, flip, we should have gone to Neves? I should have gone to Neves. Figure out how to do online mastery, all right? You underpin your online mastery with this stuff, you'll be way more successful. Just be dead smart about being a student of people. You don't need to manipulate them or bully them, just understand them. She prefers it this way, and that's the way she flows through information. So what we need to do is we need to do it that way. Our business, instead of going, I look at technical businesses particularly. I work with a lot of technology firms and professional services, lawyers, accountants and stuff. And they're all on this left-hand side. This is what we do and this is how we do it. All right? Walk into the room to do a pitch. Well, this is what we do and this is how we do it. This is what it costs. This is maybe some of the difference that it'll make. Not even really considering, like bringing right forward all the interpersonal stuff. And then we throw that at the wall and expect it to stick, and it doesn't. So we end up having to work really, really hard, and we keep doing it. Just look at it in the round. What's interesting about this is it changes when you're under pressure as well. So when you're under pressure, particularly for sales, you'll see this with sales professionals, they will go further in to their preferences and normally make it worse. So if you're quite a technical person, this is what it is and how it works, under pressure, they tend to get deeper into that instead of pulling themselves back and looking at it in the round. So let's have a look at how people communicate. What's your thoughts so far? I can't see your thing. Your name?
Declan.
Declan. What's your business, Declan?
Bathroom distribution.
Okay, very good.
Sell to cover the whole of Ireland. But
Okay.
yeah, look, different people all the time. I wouldn't be very technical.
Right.
I'm not. And a lot of the time you don't need to be.
Yeah.
You have to have the knowledge, but you don't have to be that technical.
Yeah.
So I would be on the right
this
hand
side?
side
Yeah.
more than the left.
Okay. And the good thing about that is if you recognise it, going, I don't need to have all the information to be able to talk to it, but I need to be able to reference it and bring it up when it's there. Right? Because the thing with something like bathrooms, it'd be easy to go, well, you're selling a dream and all the rest of it. I know for me, we bought 2 bathrooms recently, last year when we were getting our house built. And we looked at it and I wanted to know some, and I don't have an A-quadrant preference, but when I asked a couple of questions of this guy, not your business, he didn't know and it put me off. but I'm a CD guy, right? It's like, it was around cost and around that kind of stuff, and he was like, oh, well, you know, I was thinking, you should have that detail. And I walked away going, what else does he not really know? Do you know what I mean? Simple presentation. Let me show you.
Did you buy often?
What?
Did you buy often?
She did.
She really loved it. We ended up with it actually. Well, I had to go back and go, no, tell me what this is.
Yeah.
So let me just show you, right? People, this is how you start to figure out what kind of people you're dealing with, right? So people are in the A quadrant, right? Who love that kind of thinking. The technical people, when they communicate, what you'll hear is lots of facts, no fluff, accuracy, goals, objectives, brief, clear data. Like, cut all the crap. What is it? What is it? You know, that kind of thing. You got people like that? So that's how they communicate. I'm going to give you a checklist that turns this back on them. People who have a preference in B, or in D rather, they'll just want to know the big picture. What's it mean to me? What can I do with it? What, you know, like the big picture, conceptual. They want minimal details. You know, if you talk to my wife, that's her. She just looks at it and goes, I love that. I know, but it's like 14 times more expensive than the one next door. Don't just look at that. Can you imagine that sitting there? I'm going, yes, I can, but I can also imagine having to pay for it to be sitting there in the corner. So it was really interesting. The architect that we got to do, we didn't interview architects, just got 2 or 3 round. What was really interesting was one architect waltzed into our house and went, oh, I can see this. And she went off and went, friggin' you sitting on a Sunday morning reading the papers with the sun coming this way. And I'm going, I've got 3 kids and a dog, right? The chances of me getting my backside to a seat on Sunday morning to sit and read the papers are next to nothing. She didn't get the job. She started off way up here. What quadrant should you have started in? Well, you look at the 4.
What?
Okay, what is it? Or even before that, on a first meet.
I shouldn't understand what you want.
She should have gone
sit down
C.
and say, well, what do you see?
She should have gone red. Jeez. She should have said, what are you looking? You know what, kind of real basic stuff. But she didn't, she just went into, I have a dream. I went, your dream's not mine, love. Move on. We didn't even get to discuss what it would do and what it would look like. Because she lost it, she didn't have me at home, right? She only stayed up there. So in here, these people who have this preference want to have really good conversation. They're expressive. They want to know how people hear, understand. And the last one in B is these people just want action plans, references, step by step. What's the rules? Put it in writing for me. Let me know how it works. Now, how are you going to communicate to them? If you had a room like this, remember, all you need is 3 or 4 people, and they're all thinking differently. If you learn how to pitch, and basically you don't know exactly how everyone sits in terms of what they prefer, but you know it's going to be one of those 4 because the science tells us. So instead of starting with what you think, okay, take your information and put it through a whole brain lens. Here's a quick communication checklist for you. You don't have to do all of these, but you just have to have 1 or 2 in every pitch that you ever do. So, does it use facts? Clear analysis. Is it logical and is it to the point? Next one. Is it in order? Is it sequential? Is it neat? Is it recognizable? I can tell when anyone stands up on their feet if they haven't actually thought through an order and stuff, because it becomes jumbled and they start to talk about other random stuff, which is not the point. I go, no, you're not prepared. You should have. Why are you talking about that? That's not in order. And then I switch on. Anyone else? Yeah. Okay. Is it big picture? Does it look at the future? Does it tell me why this product matters to me or why this service matters to me? Can you tell me about the difference that it's going to make to me? And lastly, thanks Stephanie, do you have experiences? Are you telling me about like testimonials, experiences that relate to me? Does it acknowledge any emotional issues? Do you know how you can do that really simply in 1 sentence when you're selling? Look, I realise that you may be worried about cost right now or how you might pay that, but let me come back to that a little bit later on. 1 sentence, all I did was touch that quadrant and took away the objection. You get that? Dead smart. But I'll see salespeople do it all the time. All they do, they'll step that to the side and go, oh God, that's awkward. Price is going to be awkward here. Nail it early. Because if you don't, the objection is going to sit in their head and all they're thinking about is he hasn't or she hasn't said about this. Just acknowledge the personal issue and say, or the issue that's hard for them, and then come back to it. But at the start, just acknowledge it. Does that make sense? Now, if there's, what do you think of that for a checklist? Not that simple. Tell you, we do this every single time, right? I don't think I've done a pitch in years, genuinely, and we have more work than we can handle. I'm not saying that to go. It's simply taking the time to think about what we do. So whenever I walk into a business, here's generally where I start. I start with C quadrant. And then, why would I start with C? Because I want to build rapport. I don't go, here's Proclaim Consulting, this is what we do, this is how we've done it, here's our clients, this is what a program looks like, this is what coaching looks like, because they go, yeah, you and the 10 other people. There's 500 companies do this in Belfast. Where we start with is, tell me about you, why did you make the call, tell me about your issues, what's going on, what would it look like fixed? D quadrant. What are you hoping to achieve? 6 months from now, what would it look like? What options do you have? What have you tried? Where else have you been? Okay. Tell me what would really light you up here in terms of, if it looked like this would be brilliant. Sometimes people don't know, they just want to be able to talk it out. Where do you think then I'd go next? Go A, well, this is what we could do. Here's your issue, here's how we fix it. B, to finish off, is there always a good place to finish? So here's what happens next. If you don't do that, when you're under pressure, you're going to stick with your preference. Probably from a lot of people we find this is what it is and this is how it works. And we're not getting onto the other side. So you just have a simple process flow. And all we know is, statistically speaking, that's why you get 78% more effective communication when you do things in a whole brain way. Better thinking is better sales. I'm not manipulating, bullying, I'm not having to talk down my competition. I'm not having to do any of that stuff. I can be myself. Remember, this is a good thing to write down. The human brain is wired for authenticity. And so what we don't like is we don't like slick. Because slick we don't trust. Nobody needs you to be perfect. They just need you to be real and they need you to be authentic. And what we have found is this has taken the pressure off, us particularly whenever we're talking to new businesses to go, right? We're not, it doesn't feel like you're selling, but all we're doing is leveraging how you make decisions. It's quite smart, actually. You make decisions this way, so we're going to definitely make sure that's covered. Plus, we'll give you everything else to help you make the best decision. How am I doing so far? Una?
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I'm just thinking of my own website and how to find my price guide and my employing all those things.
Okay.
So I have spent a lot more time actually working on price and realised it's really, really important
Yeah.
to be clear about that.
Yeah.
Because I sell something creative.
Okay.
But I need to get back to the basics with people because after they've done the creative selling the dream thing, they want to know the details.
Yeah.
So I realised more the importance of that.
The shed one's interesting for me. There's tons of people do sheds, right? And so we had a picture of what it looks like, why we need it, all the rest of it. Ended up buying a garden room. That was a surprise. That was my face, right? I was on offer, but it needed to be for flip's sake. Anyway, long story short, probably about 70% of the websites we looked at for sheds don't have prices on them. What was I missing? A quadrant. Is it my preference? No, but to make a decision, I'm going to need it. I don't care. Put all the photos you like of lovely kids, way nicer looking than my kids, and probably better behaved, dancing around a barbecue with friggin' all sorts of stuff going on. That didn't make me buy. I thought, yeah, I like, all right. But they dropped off one of the big quadrants of decision making, so I don't have the time to phone them. So they didn't get the sale. And it could have been, here's the thing, they could have been a much better company than what I ended up buying. I don't know. I'm not saying the companies are bad, they're just going, honestly, you don't break the rules on how people make decisions. You realise decision making, right? The actual word to decide means to cut out. In Latin, the root of the word is to cut out. So when you make a decision, what you're doing is you're cutting away. What we're saying here is put the things in that will, if they're cut away, the decision doesn't go your way. And people can't fight it because it's how they're wired biologically. It's brilliant. It just helps out. I'll give you, what about getting buy-in? Anyone have to do that? Have to buy into an idea, a plan. What does that look? What does whole brain look like when you're trying to get buy-in? Like something like that one. The first quadrant and A quadrant. Here's what you need to have. You want to get buy-in. Think about a pitch that you're going to make, a phone call you're going to do. In your preparation, make sure you have at least thought about this and covered it. You need to have your proof, your technicals, your financial analysis, data, whatever it happens to be. Be very factual and critical of what this product does versus your competition or anything else. Testimonials are good in there as well. When I go to B quadrant, all right, show where it's worked before. How much does it cost? How do you order? What comes next? What they can expect, etc., etc. In the C, this is where you can build in things like how, you can read it for yourself. Okay, I'm not going to do these okay. And then D, and then what does it look like? So that's how you get better buy-in. That's a really fast model. So sometimes we work with leaders and managers predominantly, and we go, you're struggling to get people to change in your business. Yeah, they won't buy in, all right? Okay, well, we know how people make decisions on change. We know it's normally distributed on a graph. And here's what normally happens in change as an example, right? So you do this for your clients. If you're selling a new product or service and you're asking them to change things, what we normally do is we normally go, this is what it is and this is how it's going to work, all right? And then we expect people to get on board. 70% of people in the world today, normal distribution, the data's there for everyone to see, make change decisions based on that. How's it going to affect me? And what does it look like in the future? How do I feel about it? So if you want a client to change something, talk to them on that side, and then tell them what it is and leave them with how it's going to work. All you're doing is taking your information, reordering it, get really smart with it, and you'll get better results. That, ladies and gents, is the quickest deep dive I've ever done into whole brain thinking. But I'll take some questions because I know we're up on time. But I guess what I'm trying to say is this. Stop just doing what you've always done. Chucking it madly at the wall and hoping to God that it sticks. You'll get tired, you'll get frustrated. When it comes to your advertising, your pitching and everything else, the science of how people make decisions is there for everyone to see. What we do wrong in selling is that we normally approach it the way that it makes sense to us. And then the objections that come from other people is because we haven't given our information or talked about our information in a way that makes sense to them. It's really simple. So you go, well, what does that mean? Well, there's only 4 ways. What is it? How does it work? How does it impact me? And what difference does it make anyway? That is the primal bit of decision making in human beings. You don't need to be, thank God, you don't need to be up at 5. I'm going to say that. Doing all sorts of stuff. In a moment when you get really good at this, and you start to learn it, you start to understand your own preferences, you can be measured and tested and all sorts of stuff, your teams can be. When you do that, all right, I guarantee you this, your confidence level going into any conversation where you need to have someone make a decision for you will go through the roof. When you're selling bathrooms, you know if that guy who was standing in the warehouse with him, right? If he had slowed down even one bit to go, what is it, right, that you need to know from me? I would have gone to A quadrant, and if he had helped me with that, I'd already figured out the rest out. But he didn't. He kept going, you see, I can see the kids, I love that bath, look at that. And I'm going, but it needs to fit in here. Can it be changed too? Do you get me?
Yeah.
And I got fed up going, look, well, shut up, he's selling the life out of this thing, but he's not selling it the way that I need it. Does that make sense? How's that?
Yeah.
I'm kind of done. What questions do you have? Or not?
Your technique for reading people.
Yeah.
So do you always go see first?
No.
Or to get the information out, or do you walk in and do you sort of without perception, or do you make perceptions?
Language, it's a great question. Language. So listen to people, if we go back to this one here, do you want me to send you this stuff? Would this be helpful?
That would be good, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So that's how they communicate. So you'll figure out very quickly, all you need to know, what am I hearing? Am I hearing someone who has, so for accountants, I think that here's my background obviously, but I do a lot of CPD work in the Institute. So one of the things about accountants is they want to know, what is, you'll hear it in language, what's the data, what's the background, So what do I do to get them? I speak into that first, right? And it's not always equally weighted as well. So it's not always 25-25. Sometimes in a conversation I might weight more onto some other quadrants than others. But to make the decision, you need to at least talk into every one of them. because we all think in every quadrant. Do you get that? We just prefer one over the other. So be a student. That's emotional intelligence, self-smart people smart. Listen to language and you'll start to go, they're more analytical and factual. Or they're more like, this is what we're trying to do and this is what we see. Okay, well, let's go into that space, all right? I have some concerns around, or we're just not sure about, right? That's a C-space conversation. Well, tell me more about that. You get that? And then in your head, you just have those 4 things. So if you become really, really good at it and you understand what the language is telling you, how they make decisions, then just be agile and pivot to that. Does that help?
Yeah.
You have to slow down, I think, as well, not to be too quick. So I learned very quickly. The first time I never sold a car, it was about 3 months before I sold the first new car. It's because this woman sat down for me, and my boss at the time, it was a big learning curve for me, because he said, yeah, that's exactly how you don't do it. This woman had bought cars off hers for like 20 years. She literally came in every year, a widowed woman in her 60s, and said, I want a red one. And I managed to talk her out of it. I remember it was a Clio something, and there was a McGann in the showroom, and the McGann's just about 500 quid more than you do that. Confused the wee woman's head. She went to Prentice, who was our biggest competitor, right? I just walked in and went, please give me a red one, because he's a balloon up there and he wouldn't listen to me. All right, I didn't listen. Spent too much. I was approaching it like this is, because I thought this is what works, this is what makes sense to me. I didn't stop to go, she sees this decision entirely differently. Now the thing is, to make it easy, like, go away and look at your website today and tell me what, if I was landing on it. Not so much how does it follow through, but what does it tell me? Do you speak to every bit of the decision-making process in people? Think about the last meeting that you had, the last pitch that you made to try and get somebody to do something. Where did you start, where did you end, and what did you miss out? What about briefing people if you work in an organisation where there's 5 people on your team or 10 people on your team and you need to get them to change direction, you need to get them to buy in? How did you pitch that? This is what it is, this is how it works. That's an example. It's up to you. Any other questions?
Is there in talking about behaviours and stuff, I know there's a lot of things you can go and analyse yourself. Is there only one thing which you would suggest that we should believe it here should do?
Yeah, I get yourself assessed for this. Honestly, I mean, we've worked with thousands of people over the last number of years, big corporate and SMEs and everything else in between. The biggest thing, because you think about it, every business that you're in runs on thinking. Every decision that somebody makes that works for you or you, every strategy, every plan, every social media post, every business runs on thinking. To get really good clarity on how you think, you have to be measured. So get measured. You can contact us for that if you want, and we'll signpost you to it. And then that will give you a very clear idea of how you see things, tons of detail, how that changes when you're under pressure. What's really interesting about salespeople is they tend to go away from the things that will land sales when they're under pressure, because targets become really in front of their head. Chase the target, chase the target, chase the target. Reinforces some crap behaviours at times, all sorts of stuff. Instead of in a pressure environment, learn how to step back, think things through in a whole brain way, and make a better decision. So you need that data. I would say if you're interested in having better performance in your businesses across the piece, start with thinking, because it's the root of everything that you do. Remember, you think, then you feel, then you behave, not the other way around. People say you behave your way into good feelings. I think that's you up and down with that one. Thinking's at the root of it. That's what makes us human. What did you think? Are we done in time, or?
Yeah, we could take one more question.
I thought we were to finish at 11:30, so I was rushing around. Any other questions? How did you find that? Is that interesting that we've got science and geeky stuff?
Very interesting.
It's an application now for you where you go, well, how do we do?
We probably do use elements of it, but you know, you put it into sections and so on, so that there's bits that I would use every day.
Yeah.
That I'm doing not consciously, until you've put the specifics in front of me.
Yeah.
But yes, there's bits that I do, but there's also bits that I don't do.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
And the question I think that's right, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So what we do is what has worked for us in the past. And you're all successful people, I guess. You know, you're here today, you obviously want to learn. And so we get into the patterns and the way of working, and this has worked for me. And so I do it. I guess the thing is, in a world which is changing rapidly, what we've really got to be careful of is going, well, the way I've always done it is going to work in the next 5 years. Predominantly, we work in technology. So I'm telling you now, tech businesses are changing like there is no tomorrow. Like huge changes going on. And Northern Ireland is quickly emerging and probably like top cyber capital of probably the world in the next 10 years. Stuff that you would never have dreamt of, right? But the thing is, where businesses are struggling is they're still doing what they did even before pandemic. And they're going, the world's changed massively. If you don't get on board with this, then you're going to struggle. That's what I said about VUCA. It is volatile and certain complex. That's nothing to be afraid of, because here's the thing, it's not VUCA for you and everyone else is just having a whale of a time. It's VUCA for everybody. And the ones who are, that word agility, I know I skipped over it, that is the key. How do you pivot and shift in a sales environment? Well, do you know what the beautiful thing is? This is probably a great way to round it up. The beautiful thing in a changing world that doesn't change is how people make decisions. Remember, the whole sales world is on behaviours. Behaviours are useful. I'm not saying talking them down, but at the root of every behaviour is how they think. You know, so we're measuring what people think, not how they think. Take that one away. We spend a lot of time measuring what people do, not why they do it. If we get to the why they do it, we'll get a better result.
I think it's bringing it back to the people that are working with, trying to get this through to them.
Sure.
You know, how do you, to start to get the message through how they should be behaving.
Yeah. I think most people actually like it when, you know, the good thing about it is nobody's right or wrong. You know, has anyone ever been measuring their personality?
Yeah.
It's a shocker, isn't it? You're this, you're that. I was told I wasn't creative. I was told a lot of things over the course of my life. One of the ones that really got in my, just to help you is, stuck in my crows, you're not creative, you're not this, you're not that. It's like, what happens whenever you tell, so see, personality's fixed, you can't really change it. You are what you are probably from the age of 8 or 9. That's what the science tells us, right? Ocean and all that, if you're interested, right? It's not really going to change. So in a world that's changing really quick, does that mean you're redundant and left on the scrap heap? No. Your personality's fixed, but you're agile. Your thinking can change. You can learn and grow new thinking, neural pathways and all that stuff. I didn't get into it now. So what's brilliant about this is, whenever you start to talk about thinking in your business, we go, see the way that you see the world, we want you to keep it like that. We don't want you to change it, we just want you to be aware that there's gaps. We don't need you to, in fact, the last thing we want is everyone to think the same. That's called homophily. We just want you to be aware of how you see it, how you make decisions, and then fill in the gaps. And in fact, sometimes when you make it awareness for other people, we go, there's nothing good or bad about the way that you see it, it's just the way that it is. But if I can get you two to work together in your differences, then you'll make statistically a much better decision. Because you'll bring something along and you go, well, I see it this way. When I see it this way, and we give you, there's a methodology for that. Okay, bring those two together, and now it's greater than the sum of its parts. That's diverse thinking coming together. So it's interesting. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what you have to do is you have to get people on the same page, create a common language, so that it's not me pushing something, because people are only going to see it their way until you go, your way is really good, but here's what you miss, and here's what you're weak on. But I tell you what, she's really good at that. So nobody change, everyone just have a common language, talk about what you see, and then when we bring that together and align it, boom, we'll make a better decision. That's true diversity, isn't it? That's true inclusion, never mind diversity.
I'm just going to jump in. I think we
Perfect.
should probably
We're
wrap it
done.
up. Can we show Andrew our appreciation for that? By all means, keep talking to each other. I'm sure if you